Okay, so you guys have already seen the title, the thumbnail, everything. You know what this video is about, so I'm not going to waste your time. Basically, there will be two parts to this video. The specs, which is where I will go over the engine size, you know, the horsepower, the torque, all the fun numbers of it. Then there will be a riding portion where I will actually go out and I'll ride both of these bikes, compare them, see how they feel to ride. And then at the end, I'll have my conclusion of which bike I think is best or which one you should buy. So on the left here, we have a 2016 Yamaha Mt09. Well, sorry, actually it's an Fz07. They changed the name around. I think it was like 2017 or 2018. They actually changed the name to MT instead of FC. There was not a lot of difference. It's all minor changes like cosmetic, the name, maybe a little bit of tweaking on the engine, but that's about it. Now, I just want to make a quick disclaimer. I do not have a cheat sheet to read off of, so I'm going off of my memory. So if I get some of the numbers a little bit wrong, you'll have to bear with me. I will have them up on screen so you won't have to wonder. The Fz07 is sporting a 689cc engine, a twin. It's producing about 75-ish horsepower and making a whopping 68 foot-pounds of torque. So while maybe it's not the powerhouse, it's a fun, torquey bike, and it only weighs 405 pounds. So with that weight and that power, it's a blast. Now, this bike is a base model. It doesn't have any traction control or ABS. It's just a bike, which is good and bad. Bad because maybe it limits you a little bit, but it's just nice to have just a straight up bike. You can rip around, slide the tire, whatever you want to do. Don't have to worry about it. So on our right, we have a 2019 Yamaha Mt09 sporting a whopping 889cc engine, triple, and it produces about 115 horsepower stock, 86 foot-pounds of torque, I believe. Definitely has more power than the Fz07. A little bit of a powerhouse, very torquey, and a lot of fun. But with that, it's also a little bit heavier. It comes in weighing about 415 pounds, I believe, maybe 420. Now, as far as electronics, the Mt09 definitely outclasses the Fz07. The Fz07 doesn't really have any electronic capabilities apart from the essential, you know, lights, turn signals, all that good stuff. Whereas the Mt09 has traction control, ABS. It has two different types of traction control. It has one, two, well, in off. One applies minimal traction control, two applies the most traction control, which with it being the absurd torque monster that it is, you definitely need some traction control on that beast. Now, both of these bikes are virtually stock with the exception of a exhaust system. And of course, you know, you gotta have the good old fish sticker. It adds 5 horsepower. That's coming on, as everyone knows that. Make sure to drop a like below. It's the best way for me to know what you guys like. And subscribe, because we are almost at 200 subscribers. We are just 5 away at the time that I'm filming this video. So chop chop, hit the button. That's your job. So yeah, I mean, there's not really anything else to talk about. I mean, there is, but for right now, there's not really anything to talk about the bikes. They're both great bikes. They both produce a pretty good amount of power, and they're both fun. They both look really good too. So yeah, let's see how they ride on the road. So I flipped the coin and I'm riding the big bike first. So yeah. Okay, I know what you guys really want. You guys want a sound check. Oh, it sounds so good. Pop was so loud. Listen to it. Okay, we're gonna take this back road and test it out. It definitely has more power than the Fz07 by far. Just right off the bat, noticing, I mean, it just accelerates. There's so much torque. One thing I will say is it does not like to dive into turns quite as much as the Fz07. It's a little bit blockier, a little bit more rigid, which is good because it goes faster. And so at faster speeds, it feels good. But in turns, it's a little bit harder to get used to than the Fz07. That being said, I do think the suspension in turns is better on this bike. The inverted forks, it feels much better. The seat is pretty comfortable. I think the Mt07, the seat is more comfortable, but that's just me. Seating position, you're pretty upright. It's more, you actually feel like you're riding a dirt bike. And I didn't know there was cops on this route. Anyway, so you feel like you're riding a dirt bike. You're really upright. You're not quite as upright as a dirt bike, but definitely more than the Fz07. So the handlebars, you can see they're a little bit flatter. You're on top of the bike. You're not in the bike. You're on top. I like it, but I'm also used to dirt bikes before I ever got on a street motorcycle. So, but yeah, it feels pretty good. The brakes are pretty nice. Up here, there's an open stretch, and I'm going to do a 0 to 60 and a 0 to 100. That way you guys can see the power. I'll put the times on the screen for both bikes. I think it's a little bit smoother than the Mt09. I mean Fz07. Man, I keep saying that. It feels like it's one piece. It doesn't feel that loose in the front. I mean, it is compared to like an R1, but compared to the Fz07, it's much sturdier, and it just gives it a nice overall feel. Your back's not tired, your butt's not tired. It just feels good. One thing I will say that I do like about this seat is it's all one piece. It's not split into two like the Fz07, but that's just personal preference. Do a quick little 0 to 60. Ready? Here we go. Pep in its step. I do think it needs a quick shifter. If you're going to buy it, put a quick shifter on it. It makes your day so much better. So like when you first buy this bike, especially if it's stock, I suggest you send it to a place to get tuned, because the throttle mapping on this bike is a little wild. Like A mode, now A mode is stock. I have it set to stock, so it's a little jumpy, but I like that. Now I set standard and B to be very smooth, because stock, the modes are very jumpy. The throttle's very on or off. It's not very fluid throttle. So definitely do that. And you need an exhaust. I mean, it just sounds so good. Woo! And it just feels good because you can do that. Get your heart rate up. So I kind of got on the bike, got a little happy with the throttle and everything else, and I kind of forgot what I was going to talk about. So this part might be a little shorter, but you get the gist of it. It's a good bike. It's very rowdy, wheelie happy. I'm not the best at wheelies, so I can power up a wheelie, but if you know how to do wheelies, oh, this bike would be so much fun. Feels so good. It could dive into turns a little bit more. It doesn't really like that. The suspension in turns is very good. It's comfortable. You're upright. Plenty of power. After you tune it, the power feels great. The engine braking isn't too bad. What else have I missed? You need an exhaust. That's just a necessary for any motorcycle, really. Okay, now I haven't ridden this bike in a while, so it's gonna definitely feel very different. Give you guys a little sound check first. Oh. Woo. It just sounds so good. This bike feels so different. But it is completely different. It's so weird. Woo. Okay, here we go again. It is a shorter bike. My legs are more bent, as you can probably see. I'm a little bit more leaned over just because the way the seat is. I don't know if you can see it, but this tank is longer than it is wide, so you sit back in the seat more. I don't know, it's pretty comfortable. The seat feels really good. It's very cushiony. The only complaint I have about it is I wish it was a little bit wider. Other than that, it's nice and soft. It does have a two-piece seat, like one under your butt and then one for a passenger, where it has a small storage compartment. I don't really like the second one. It's a little bit too loose for me. Seating position, so again, it's still a little bit like a dirt bike. Flat handlebars. You're very upright. Your butt's not going to get tired. Your back might get a little tired if you're a tall person. As far as how it feels in the turns, It feels amazing. It's very nimble, so it wants to lean into the turn, whereas the Mt09 was very kind of stiff. It didn't want to lean. This bike, you can just kind of flick around. Like I said in the previous part with the 09, it definitely isn't as stable with the suspension. From a somewhat new rider's point of view, it feels a little bit more loosey-goosey, like you can just kind of do that. You know, it's not as sturdy. So high speeds, not gonna be your bike. And I'm sure you can hear it, but this bike is definitely windier. Now this does help. Without this, oh, it'd just be wind. Okay, we're gonna pull over for a little short in 0 to 60. I did want to mention a couple things before we do it though. It is nice, but like I said, it's really big. So it means you can see it well, but when you're glancing, it's kind of hard to see everything all at once. The gauge cluster is literally almost the same, except you don't have any like traction control or anything to see where they're... Oh, is that just like a rubber plug? 0 to 60, here we go. Have a little bit of pep in its step too, but oh, look how nimble that is. That is one thing about this bike, is it's so nimble. You can just flick it anywhere you want to go. If you're worried about lack of power with this bike, don't be, because I'm in 6th gear. I'm cruising at about 70-ish, 75, and I still have more power to spare. So it's a this bike is great if you want to cruise. Holy engine braking. That is one thing, that I will say about this bike. If you're not expecting it, the engine braking will get you. And if I had to describe the power of this bike, I would say user-friendly. It has plenty of power, but in a usable sort of way. So I think if you're a beginner or a new intermediate rider, and you're looking for a bike with a little bit of pep to it, over like an R3 or something, this is definitely a good candidate. Oh, fun. This is a fun bike. The Mt09 is fun, but it's a little bit more of like a serious fun. But this, you can just kind of, you know, you can just kind of... Now, one thing to note is it does not have traction control or ABS, so I can lock up the wheel, and this gravel is going to get you. I'm talking about usable, watch this. But I can pop the clutch in this, no problem. 2nd gear, it comes right up. I don't have to worry about it going too high. You know what, I'm gonna see if I can get a fist bump from this guy. Yeah! Have a good day! So after riding both of these bikes, I've come to the conclusion that I like them both equally, and I can't pick one over the other. I just don't see how you could do that. I mean, it would just be so wrong. I like the Mt09 much better. Now, before you go off in the comments and start yelling at me, I have a reason. While I do like the way the Mt07 feels as far as how it corners, how maneuverable it is, and the seat, which is amazing, I just like the Mt09 better. I like the power, I like the way it looks. Seat is still pretty decent for me, and it just fits me well. While I do like the Mt09 better than the Mt07, they both are really good bikes. You want a bigger bike that's a little bit heavier, but it has lots of power, you can go fast, then this is your bike. If you're a beginner, or you're wanting something a little bit more laid back, maybe you're stunting, or you just want a good bike to cruise around that has lots of character, then I suggest the Fz07. You really can't go wrong. If it really boils down to you watching 900 YouTube videos on which one's better, then just play this video back, listen to the sound. If you like the sound of this one more, buy it. If you like the sound of this one more, buy it. Done. You can't go wrong with these bikes.